All right, everybody. Welcome to the Start, Build, Grow Show. You are going to want to stay tuned to this episode. We are capturing one of the biggest buzzwords, one of the biggest topics in the roofing industry. We're diving into private equity, buying and selling roofing companies. We're going to give you the ins and outs of that. So stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. We got my man, Josh Sparks with Infinity Home Services. You probably heard the name of that company, man. You guys are doing some big moves, making lots of things happen. I've heard your name around in the industry, and I'm excited and grateful to have you on the show. Welcome in, Josh.
Excited to be here, Randy. Appreciate you having me on.
Love it, my man. So in traditional fashion on this show, man, obviously a lot of roofing, trades, contracting. We're all about the service industry, but really the premise of this is sharing that entrepreneurial journey in the roofing and services trades industry. So let's start there, man. You're obviously a serial entrepreneur at this point, but what got you started in entrepreneurship as well as roofing?
Yeah, maybe just take a quick step back. So I'm a pretty transparent person. We were talking about backstage about it. Love sharing a little bit about my history because I think it's important that folks get to understand that you don't have to be fed a silver spoon in order to be successful in the world that we have today. So I'm a 45-year-old father of five wonderful children. I have a 20-year-old foster daughter actually who just went into the Navy. So pretty excited about that. I've got a boy over at West Point, United States Military Academy, playing golf over there. And then I have three other kids. My youngest, which is just 4 years old. And so, yeah, I'm a busy man. But I'll take you back to born in 1979 in Oakland, California. In 1988, I was just 9 years old. My mom was addicted to heroin. She was. We were in and out of different houses. She ended up getting caught. Went to prison. I went to foster care. Went to 17 different schools. Our brother and sister, we got split up, and ended up kind of making it through my childhood. I had a job at McDonald's trying to put a couple pennies together, which took a while because I was making $4.15 an hour. But anyways, I had a friend of mine offer me a job when I was 17 years old as to clean up the ground, roofing. And I had no idea what roofing was all about, but he told me he was going to pay me $9 an hour. And that was good by me at the time. And so I took that job roofing, realized in pretty short order that it wasn't a super complicated trade. And so just a couple months after I took that job, I handed out a flyer and I sold my first roof. And that was in 1997. A couple months later, I joined the Marine Corps as a reservist. I, learned the Marine Corps motto, and I took those kind of leadership skills that I learned there back into the roofing business. Decided to kind of put my head down and start growing the business. In 2005, I had a kind of a chance encounter with an exceptional lady who would end up changing my life, but I didn't know it at the time. I was 24. If you'd asked me if there's anything else I wanted in my life at that time, I would have told you I had everything I ever could have dreamed of. I had a beautiful wife. I had my first son. I owned my own little small house, and I was a little entrepreneur. I had a little roofing company that was paying the bills and probably making, $50,000 or $60,000 a year. I would have signed up for that life for the rest of my life. But I met a lady in 2005. Her name was Betty. I was stuck on that job. I was a subcontractor. The contractor I was working for put me on that job to do it on a Friday morning. It was a 9-square little roof, 9-square little layover. And I went and knocked on the door in the morning to introduce myself as the roofing guy. And she invites me in. I'm going through the scope of work with her, which is pretty simple. She invites me to a cup of coffee. I see a picture on her wall of her. It was a United States Marine in dress blues, with a nice big basket, a decorated Marine. And she would tell me that it was her husband. He had passed away. And anyhow, I spent a couple hours talking to Betty that morning, and she was just such a wonderful woman. She didn't have a lot of money. She didn't have a lot of friends, and she had no family. So I do the roof. I go out. I get the invoice for the job, which is the first time they had asked me to pick up the check. They were having some issues with collections. And I pulled the invoice out of the little manila envelope, and my jaw hit the floor, Randy. They charged her $12,000 for a 9-square layover in 2005, which is probably 85% margin. They absolutely ripped her off. And it just opened my eyes to the unscrupulous contractors that exist in the space. I didn't understand when I was 24. I thought everybody who had a lettered truck and a nice logo was a good contractor that did well by people, but I was slapped in the face by reality. I decided to quit that job. I put every penny I had into a full page ad in the yellow pages. I decided to dedicate my life to building a business predicated on honesty, transparency, and fair pricing. And I coined my vision statement to rid the world of unscrupulous contractors. I built that business over about a 15-year period with the help of a ton of great people to about 40 million in revenue. I ended up selling a part of that to private equity. We, in a short 14 months later, we had to sell again because we were growing so fast that the company we had on our private equity side didn't have the capital to allow for our expansion. So we ended up having another liquidity event after just 14 months. And today we're 23 brands strong all across the country and into Canada. We're one of the fastest growing residential roofing strategies. It's focused on our people and our customers. So super important. But yeah, that's kind of an intro. Sorry if it was too long-winded.
No, man, it's a fantastic story. I'm sure our listeners are really intrigued right now. And it's awesome, man. I've kind of been, I pay attention to the industry, 20 years myself, and definitely pay attention. And I've always heard good things about you guys and what you're doing and your vision. And I can appreciate, that because, maybe we dive into this because there's a lot of potential misconception about, private equity and roll-ups and that in our industry. I mean, you got some people who are just like, well, I'm just going to start a roofing company and sell it in 3 years. And you got some people who are like, oh man, I'm holding my cards. I'm not selling nothing. I don't want. And then you hear I've heard great things. And I've also heard some challenging things.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that maybe some of the difficulties and the challenging things that you've faced, and not necessarily even within your organization, but within the perspective of private equity in our industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what people have to understand is that private equity they're just companies. They're companies that raise capital from institutional investors. They're playing a different game than we are. I want to make sure people understand the fact that contractors are playing the game of, take care of your people, take care of your customers, build a large referring network of customers, offer great services, and if you do that, you make money. Private equity companies, they buy businesses, they try to grow the businesses, and they try to flip them. And so what's happening in the roofing space right now are typically are buy and build or roll up strategies. And so you buy a platform company that in theory is a well-run business, good leadership team, good technology, good operations. And then what you do is you acquire a few other businesses that are add-ons that are smaller and less sophisticated. And then you have them adopt that technology, therefore creating more enterprise value. So that's in theory what a good private equity company would do, right? They'd come into your brand, they would have an understanding of your business, they would understand marketing, sales, operations, the different dynamics and the nuances of the roofing business or whatever business you're in, and they would help you actually add value to the customer experience, add value to the whole value chain. But that's not what happens a lot of times. A lot of times, these I don't want to be mean, but a lot of times these folks have access to capital. They want to go, they want to buy 3 or 4 houses or companies, roll them up quick and flip them. And they make money in this what's called multiple arbitrage. And it's not a right way to grow a business. Those businesses often fail, and it's just a timing mechanism. And so it's really important that if you are interested in private equity, you're interested in growing your business, that you make sure you partner with a company that's aligned with the core values that you have in your business, period. Because most private equity companies care about one thing, and it's MOIC. It's multiple and invested capital. It's how much money can they return to their customers. Now, remember, our customers are people that we do work for in the field. Their customers are their investors. If they can give their investors more money, then there's a higher likelihood that investor will invest in that company again, so they can raise more money and buy more businesses. And that is that's their game that they're playing. And so you have to understand that. I lost you on sound here, Randy.
I love that you mentioned that, and I love so if you listen to the show, if you know me, a lot of listeners here, like I am a huge believer from day one, and that's when I started my company too. I love we have similar interests. Like I started my company with this sole focus of like doing this right. I called it roofing done right, and it's all about like faith, family, honesty, and integrity, and like truly doing things right, treating people like family in the organization, treating our customers like family, and always doing the right thing. And that's kind of what we predicated our business on. And it's all about those core values, right? Figure out what those core values are, and hire people, fire people, make decisions, and grow. And I'm a huge believer of that. But I feel like it's really difficult for that to maintain when you get into this world of people just looking for returns. When you got investors and they're looking at paper, right, looking at spreadsheets, and how do I turn this money into this money and this money into this money. But I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where a lot of these challenges come, where some of these companies go wrong, as you kind of alluded to, was that they don't put enough weight in the people aspect of this thing. And with the ones I've seen that have really gone the wrong direction is where private equity comes, buys a company, and next thing you know, it's like a fire sale. Either people are quitting, they're gone, the culture changes, everything changes, they're gone, or they come in and they fire everybody because they're either overpaid or they don't fit right on their spreadsheet, that sort of thing. Talk to me a little bit about that and like some of the challenges there.
Yeah, they look at business differently, Randy. When I was an entrepreneur over the years, have great years, and we were fortunate in our business. It grew pretty steadily year over year after year. We kept doing things right, but even if we had a backward year in an EBITDA, like our profitability wasn't good because we had a couple of jobs go bad, or we had, we did a huge Christmas party, or we increased our benefits package to our people. Those are decisions that entrepreneurs make, and they make them all the time for the benefit of their people. Let's say you get to an end of year, you didn't hit your budget, it wasn't the best year you ever had. I always gave my Christmas bonuses. I always went above and beyond and made sure that my families were taken care of. I saw with my two eyes the hard work that they were putting in, and it wasn't necessarily their fault that we didn't hit certain metrics that we thought we were going to hit, because they put the effort in, and I can see that with my two eyes.
Yeah,
I would always put that money forward. Private equity company is going to look at comps. They're going to go, okay, well, last year versus this year, we're down 50 basis points in profitability. Go cut something. It's like that's just how they think about it. They're in part spreadsheet jockeys, a lot of them, and I don't want to put all of them in the same bracket, right? But some of them, it's like,
well,
they
you kind of
manage
have
the
to be
books
to an extent, right? I mean, there's a certain you kind of have to, right, in that world, but
to an extent, Randy, that's very true. But I'm the CEO of the business now, and I can tell you that my partnership with my private equity company is phenomenal. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to say, listen, this is the benefit of making sure that we increase our benefits package. This is why we need to make sure we're paying these people these bonuses, even if we didn't hit these metrics. And I can articulate that to my private equity company in a way where they understand the long-term benefit of taking care of your people. If you don't have the right person sitting in the seat, the private equity company is going to walk all over you. They're going to say, no bonus this year, no trip. This year, we're taking 190, I think it's 190 people to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for our awards trip. 190 people on our platform. That's not inexpensive, as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
And private equity companies are going to go look at that tab and go, are you kidding me? We're going to spend X amount of dollars taking 190 people? Well, we just want that margin back in the business. And I said, no, you don't understand what this does for the culture of our business. Absolutely. And why we need to have this in the business. And so those types of decisions aren't easy to make for PE firms.
Yeah. And I love that, because even last year we took, 30, a number of years ago. So here, I'll go back like a little bit, just share a little bit more on my story on this too. So I run a decent sized roofing company, and we've been up, down. I've been doing it for 15 years. A few years back, we had a decent year, but we had an incentive trip. We put a trip in place, and we ended up taking not only a lot of our reps, but also their spouses, and took a number of people on a cruise. Right. It was super cool. We got to go to Cuba before they closed the borders, and I guess they're back open now. But it was just the experience and the connection that we made. And this was like 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Nearly every single person that went on that cruise. So we went on the cruise. We were at a peak, really good year, and then COVID hits. And you're familiar with the Colorado market. 3 years of no storms after 7 years of storms. So we got hit hard with all of that. But what happened was, how do you explain this to private equity? What happened was, all those people that we built this amazing relationship with, that were all about like coming together and working together to do this, they all stuck with us. They all dug deep, took their cuts, and took, the downturn, and worked their way and grinded their way through. We switched to retail and added a lot of commercial, added service and solar, and did all these things just to grind our way through the lull or the recession that kind of Colorado has recently come out of the last couple of
Yeah.
years. And then all of a sudden, those people stuck with us. Then all of a sudden, the market shifted. COVID kind of went away. We got a big hailstorm, and now we've had a couple of years back. Next thing you know, we just had our best year we've ever had. And my average sales rep has been with us for 8 to 10 years.
That's exciting.
That's culture, right? I'm so proud and grateful because of the investment that we made when we probably shouldn't have spent 70 grand on a or whatever. It was probably more than that. Like, it's not cheap to do those sort of things, but that's an investment that is really hard to explain to someone who's looking at a spreadsheet, right? But I can attest. So I love what you're saying about that. And invest in your people. There's a lesson there, is invest in your people, because that culture is what's going to carry you through the challenging times and help you accelerate in the really good times in business.
Yeah, totally agree. I do some leadership talks on building high performance teams, and even within my organization. And it's about having a purpose, being a purpose driven organization. So your team understands what your guiding light is, what your North Star is, what you're getting up out of bed to work for, what you're asking your team to dedicate ostensibly 1/3 of their lives to if they're coming to work for you today. Then it's creating that foundation of trust, and then creating clarity in operations. Those three fundamental tenets. If you have those in your organization, you're going to get people who not only want to work for you, they'll do anything. They'll run through walls for you.
Yeah.
And I've had that over the course of 20 years. If so long as you operate with integrity and you do what you say you're going to do, and you lead by example, I think you can be very successful.
I love it. And I touch on that a lot. And I love that you mentioned it, because I think, we can teach all the systems, all the tricks, all the tips, all the tricks, how to get the leads, how to knock the door, how to do this, how to do all the things. You can have all the systems, and I have the Roofing Academy, that's what we do. We help systemize roofing companies. We teach them all things operations, finance, profitability, all those things. But without great leadership, none of it's going to work. You must have great leaders in place. And in my role, right, our role as leaders is to develop other leaders. And once you get that, not just say it, but actually understand what that truly means, it's amazing what happens in an organization. I've seen it a number of times.
Yeah, Peter Drucker says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and this is absolutely true. There's no strategy, there's no EOS operating system, there's no sales system you can put in place if you don't have a purpose-driven organization with a strong culture. None of that matters, and I've seen it firsthand. I've got 23 different brands, but I've looked at thousands of companies, thousands literally, and you just have to have that. People want a place where they can go to work and feel like their work matters and that they're valued as a human being. So
I love that, man. We can go off on this stuff all day, but I'm interested in some things where, say, I always like to think of, hey, I'm an audience, I'm someone to listen to this. What are some questions that I may have? And, let's say I'm a young, hungry, ambitious, and kind of fairly new, maybe a smaller roofing company, and I'm looking to grow, and I have a vision of being able to build something that I can sell down the road. What are some tips that you would give me to focus on now to help me position myself? Because again, people see the what people put out online and about what's happening, and I sold this and sold this company, bought this.
Yep.
But the reality is, like you just said, you look at thousands of companies before you find the one that actually works. So if I want to be the company that gets acquired, or that becomes valuable to someone such as yourself or a private equity firm, what are some tips that you can give me?
There's millions of tips online to be found, Randy. What I would say from a holistic standpoint, if I'm myself at 19 or 20 years old when I started my business, 18 years old when I started my business, I'm going to sit down and say, what is your purpose? What do you want to accomplish in the world? Like, what is your North Star? If it's to sell your business, it's to sell your business. That's great. But what does good look like at that point in time? So super important to have a North Star for your business and a purpose. There's a great book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. He also has another book called Find Your Why. Excellent books to start with to understand how to run a business ethically and how to structure it in a way where people are going to want to come work for you. Because that really is a huge piece about running a business, is attracting the right talent and keeping them in the building. I lost a ton of talent early on because I'm up on the roof and guy shows up 2 minutes late and I'm like, get the fuck off my roof. It's like, I didn't know how to manage people back then. And so continuous improvement, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking one's potential. Winston Churchill said that. Always be reading, always improve yourself. It's very important. So purpose-driven organization, create a trusting team, and then you need to have some structure in place. You need to have some mechanism in which you operate the business, whether it's EOS, whether it's X matrix, but some mechanism that you understand the KPIs of your business, you have accountability for your team, and you're driving to certain long-term goals that you're trying to create, laddering up your goals. I would say those are fundamental in trying to build a business early on. Yeah, I could go deep into each one of those, but you let me know how far you want me to go.
Sure. And we're, cut from the same cloth, right? It's like, I was able to started my company and early on, I looked at it from a totally different perspective. I wasn't a roofer coming off a roof. I was a business person that was trying to build something special in a roofing industry that kind of brought me out of some really tough times. And from day one, I was like, how do I create something that's very systemized? Like everything we had to do more than once, create an SOP for it. Let's duplicate, create a rinse and repeat model where everything we do, we can do over and over and over, and then figure out ways how to train others to do that and train others and kind of work your way out of a job. I've done all the work, all the jobs in the business, but I've replaced myself over and over and over and over to where now I get to sit here and film podcasts and speak at conferences and coach and help others. And it's an amazing place to be, but you got to go through the trenches to get there. And, I believe kind of in roofing, there's 5 key pillars. You got to get leads, right? So you have branding and marketing as 1, you got sales leadership. That's 2. Then you got operations. It's going to be the production. It's going to be the whole system, like, the system in which you follow the workflow of the business, all the operational things. Then you got people. Right. And I think this is one of the things I think people miss. And I miss this. I'm sure you did as well. Is like, I go have a beer with somebody and cool. You're a cool guy. You're a cool. Come work for me. Like I'd like sell the business to them and kind of beg them to come work for my company to go sell roofs for me. Cause it's like, oh, I'll make more money. And that was the wrong perspective. Right now we're very intentional about our hiring, interviewing, onboarding process and how we bring people in specific type of role, type of person to fit the type of role. And it took a long time to figure that out. But once you did, man, it's created a really good opportunity, a really good high level team. So, and then the 5th pillar is the finance, right? This is the tracking the numbers, making sure you're job costing everything properly, making sure, every single penny is being counted for. Create, this will blow some roofers' mind. Obviously you're a high level guy, but this will blow a lot of roofers' mind, is that like, you can actually create predictability in a roofing business. You can understand like where your cash is, how much cash is going out, how much is expected to go out, how much is coming in, how much is expected to come in, the multiple tiers of your what we call Q, which is kind of your pipeline, so to speak. Like you can actually create this stuff if you really press into it and you enlist the right people to help you with it. But those 5 key pillars, if you can systemize those things, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this, that if you can systemize those things, you now create a value for your business. Hey, what's going on, contractors? I got a question for you. What would your business look like at the end of 2025 if you had everything dialed in, if you had all the main functions of your business, marketing, sales, production, operations, finances, people, if all those things were super systemized, if you had standard procedures for everything, and you had a team of people executing on those procedures and those systems, what would your life look like? How much money do you think you could make? How much time and freedom would you have? I want to invite you today to join me and my team. We've been working to build these systems to create one of the most efficient and systemized and organized roofing companies in the country. We've been working for 18 years to build this. And now we're going to share that. We're going to share what we've learned. We're going to share the secrets. This is not a rah-rah sales pitch. This is a one-day workshop where you're literally working on your business. I want to invite you and your leadership team, the key people that are going to help you implement these systems. That's what it takes. You can't do this alone. It takes multiple people. It takes great people. It takes a team. And I want to invite you and your team to join us for the Roofing Success Workshop. Tickets are going fast. We have a few left. It's in Dallas on January 22nd. I want to see you there. Take the time, invest one day and some travel and very minimal expenses. We're doing 2-for-1 discount on tickets, super cheap to do it. But really the big investment is your time. What's your time worth? Can you spend one day with us learning the secrets, learning the ins and outs of how to create one of the most organized roofing companies in the country, in the world? Is it worth it? I want to see you in January. Come, click the link below. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a direct message. If not, grab your tickets right now, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.
I think that's very well said, Randy. And I think all five of those pillars are important and integral in running a successful roofing company for sure. I would say that it wasn't as much when I was starting the business back in the day, but I'm seeing more of it now with all of these conferences and all this information online. I used to have a poster behind me for like 15 years that said, "Work hard in silence and let your success be the noise." There's this very fine line between working on your business and working in your business. And I feel that there's the pendulum has swung a little bit more. I think it swung in the wrong direction, in part. You have to outwork everybody. You just have to outwork people. Like that is what you have to do to win. When my business did 5 million in revenue, I had what I was selling. I had one project manager and like a half of a sales guy. And so the business was profitable and we drove lean operations. I see sometimes now a $4 million operation that has six sales guys, a sales manager, this middle market manager. So I'm like, guys, what are you doing? And they're thinking too much about management. It's like sometimes you got to just grind it and go do the work. And so you can't lose sight of that piece of the business. And you just have to outwork people. I mean, that's what I did for the better part of the first 10 years of the business. It's not until you reach a bit of scale that you really need to up your leadership skills. But
Yep.
John Maxwell talks about it all the time. I think the law of the lid, right? In his 21, I think, what is it, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, I think
Yep.
it's called. But the law of the lid, typically what we see actually in the companies we look at is the limiting factor of the growth of the business is the leader of the company. They'll have people inside the organization. Once you hit a certain scale, they're growing and they're kind of bumping up against the top. But that's 15, 20, 25, 30 million. That's not 5 million. When you're 5 million, get your ass out there, sell, grow that business, attract talent, and then start thinking about it as your business gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage. You got to do the work, right? And I'm
You
I'm
do.
cut from the old school cloth where, my original goal in life was I was gonna be a builder, right? I want to build homes and be a custom home builder. So like while I was full time in college, I took an internship with a company just wanted to learn how to build houses. My first job was here's a pickup truck, go fill it with all the debris from the job site. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess I'll do that. Just picking up junk and picking up trash from a job site. Like that's where I started, and I put in time, and through that process, I took the initiative of like, all right, I'm gonna go work with the drywallers. I'm gonna go work with the framers, and that's kind of where I got a lot into framing. Did a lot of framing. To go work with the cabinet installers, go work with, the painters, and really learn all the aspects of the business. And I think nowadays, too many people see this end goal and they see what the media tells them to see, and they're like, oh, I can just fast track that. Like I'm not gonna put in the work. I don't need to outwork anybody. I just got to outsmart everybody. I'm like,
Yeah.
that doesn't work that way. So I'll challenge young entrepreneurs out there, like be willing to do the work. Just like Josh says, like get in the trenches and do the work, because the value of the things that you will learn through the process of doing the work can't be taught. AI can't
Hmm.
teach you that. Google can't teach you that. I can't teach you that. The things that you're going to learn of, the cuts and bumps and bruises that you're going to get in the trenches will mold you into who you become as you get to that lid. And when you flip to being a great leader, that's when you start to really rely on all the things you learned while you're in the trenches. And I'm just speaking from my own journey here, and so many things I just tap into. Like I can truly relate to a lot of people that I lead nowadays.
Hmm.
Not because I'm, a suitcase contractor where I just figured it out and read a book. It was because I've been in the trenches. My knuckles are bloody and I've been there, done that. And I think we try to skip that. So for those of you listening, I would challenge you to really put in the time and energy to learn what you need to learn, because it'll pay itself in spades and over and multiply itself as you grow. Once you get to that lid where you have to convert to be a great leader, to be a CEO of a company and not just a grinder, that's going to help you accelerate when you get to that level.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
Love that, man. All right, brother. I know it's always great, man. I can just sit here and talk roofing, talk business all day long. What are some things? Okay, it was kind of gotten to that. Like, what are some ideal, you know, roofing companies? Give me maybe some sizes, numbers. Like, what are some things that like a firm such as yourself or a private firm? What are we looking for? What are you looking for in a company to then be acquired, and or what's your target audience look like?
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, almost every private equity company is going to have a fairway, a scorecard in which the businesses that they're looking to acquire. Our business is pretty strongly bifurcated into storm restoration businesses and retail businesses. Well, you also have some commercial stuff, but I would almost consider that a different business. But most are going to look for businesses that have had a steady, long-term, sustained organic growth in both revenue and EBITDA. So growth over time, not this kind of real choppy growth. Private equity companies want to invest in businesses that are relatively stable, that are growing over time. Typically, you're going to look for companies that are 8 to 10 million in revenue, top line revenue, about $1 million in EBITDA. That's kind of that cracks into the being interested, private equity companies being interested in them. There's some smaller players, frankly, who acquire really small businesses and then help them grow.
Mm-hmm.
I've got mixed feelings on that, depending on who you partner with, because if you think you can take your business to 10 million, you're going to get a much bigger payday doing it yourself than partnering with a small company. Although there's a few out there that are doing it right. So yeah, a company that cares about its people, a company that cares about its customers, typically that have good ENPS scores or good Google scores, long-term staff, things like that. So that's kind of like middle of the runway, center of the fairway, excuse me, of what we'd be looking for. But every company is different. We partner with founders. We love what SRS did. SRS sold to Home Depot for $18 billion. They had 25% of their staff were equity holders in that company. They made multi-generational wealth for hundreds, if not thousands of people, which I think is awesome. We're 40% owned by our employees right now, Randy. So when we have our next liquidity event, it's not just the small private equity group that's getting all the cash and all the investors. It's the people doing the work in the field, selling, running these branches that really are going to also taste a lot of the upside and create that generational wealth. So a lot of cool stuff happening. So it's a cool time in the roofing business too. I mean, never before 3 or 4 years ago did anybody have an opportunity to make real capital from the businesses. Either gave it to their kids or they gave it to some employees or they just shut it down. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I love that, man. And we'll start the process here and land in the plane here. And I guess my next kind of question to kind of lean into that is, you're really in tune with the industry. Like, where do you see the industry going in 5 years? Like, give me some insight.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get the good, you're going to get the bad, and you're going to get the ugly. And so we've seen it happen in HVAC, right? So HVAC, the first company that was acquired on the HVAC side was bought in 2002. So it's about 22 years they've been rolling that industry up. And by the way, still only about 20% consolidated from an EBITDA perspective. So even though private equity's been buying for a long time, it's 80% is still mom and pop local operations. So don't think that you're going to get run over by private equity in this space. So I would say that if you want to continue to run a lifestyle business, you're comfortable keeping it at that whatever called $10 to $15 million, and you're fine with that. Don't think that Walmart PE is coming in next door and going to take all your customers. That's not going to happen. So just take care of your people. You're going to continue to get referrals. You'll be fine. Now,
Great point.
But scaling your business is going to be harder. So if you want to take it from 15 to 50 million, it's going to be much harder because there's lots of private equity that have tons of cash they can dump in marketing, and they've got really sharp people in their offices that are making sure that their marketing is landing effectively. So it's a little bit more difficult. But the good, the bad, the ugly. So you're going to see good private equity companies, and I think IHS is one of them. We've got 23 brands. We're taking care of our people. We're taking care of our customers. We're going to be very successful. There's a few others in our space that are also doing a great job by their people, by their founders. You're going to get the bad, which is, hey, we're going to let you keep running the business as we say, and nothing's going to happen, and nothing's going to change. Keep doing what you're doing. They close the deal, and then they round up, 20% of your employees and fire them, and then you get pissed off. I've gotten those emails already where the people are not happy about what happened, and then you're going to get the ugly. You're going to get PE firms that don't make it. You're going to get companies that buy at incredibly high multiples, that buy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 companies with no CEO in place, no long-term strategy, hoping to flip it off to the next PE firm. And I'm telling you right now, those PE firms have zero appetite, none for business collectors, none. And I've talked to the big boys, and the public equity markets don't like them either. So If you think that you can partner your business with a firm that's just buying them all, and you're going to get another payday for some, that they call it the second bite of the apple
Yeah.
for some,
Heard
4,
that so
5,
much.
6,
Yeah.
10 times your money, they're full of shit. And I don't know how else more plainly to tell you that.
Yeah.
Um,
I love it. Love the directness, man. It's important.
yeah. And so, yeah, you're going to get all of them. So that's going to be our industry. You're going to get consolidation across the entire space. You're going to get way more investment, which is interesting in the technology in our space. The big brands, the service titans of the world, these big technology companies have avoided the roofing space because there was no roofers were spending money on it. Now with PE in the space, you're going to see many more of these tangential services, supportive services, being more beneficial. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting in the next 5 years.
Love it, man. Thank you. That's incredible insight, and I love what you're doing, and you're pioneering. I feel like you're doing it the right way, and it's great to hang out with you. And thank you for kind of leading the charge in this industry. So now's the time. I don't know how many shows or if you're familiar with the show. Now is the time where I always try to put my guests on the spot. We call this the golden nugget, my man. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs, the roofing owners, people, aspiring entrepreneurs in the space, outside of space. My father-in-law is probably listening. Like, there's lots of people listening to this thing. So what's your best piece of advice that you would give to another entrepreneur out there?
Right there. Discover Stoicism, the 4 virtues of Stoic philosophy: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. I read an exceptional book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, probably about 10 years ago, but William Irvin's The Stoic Challenge, and it changed my life for the better. 100%. It changed my personal relationships, changed my professional relationships, changed my leadership ability. When you understand that there have been absolute giants before you that have done very impactful things in the world, you reframe how you think about everyday things, and it makes you a better leader and it makes you a better person. And so I recommend everybody I talk to get into that. I was 29 years old. I was a multimillionaire. I had everything you could have thought people would want. And I was miserable. I was a miserable human being. I didn't know who I was, didn't know what I wanted to be, didn't know what my worth was on the planet. Started reading Stoicism and changed my life. And so strong entrepreneurs, A-type personalities, B-type personalities, it doesn't matter. It will make you a better human.
I love that, man. So temperance, wisdom, courage, justice.
That's right.
And I love that you mentioned that, because that's something I really have leaned into, but it's on my kind of virtual board, if you will, like going into next year. Like I have the Daily Stoic, the Daily Dabs, and a lot of the stuff by Ryan Holiday. I've been really kind of
Holiday's great.
stuff. I just bought the cold plunge and the sauna, and like I'm turning my whole backyard into this, like, literally I have guys in my house now working on electrical to plug in our jacuzzi, our hot tub, and just like things to just create an environment where I can really lean into my mindset and peace and being present and really understanding what, what Stoicism is all about. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, how do I find you? How do I reach out to you?
Just go on our website, infinityhomeservices.com.
Gotcha. All right, my man, Josh Sparks with Infinity Home Services. Thank you for joining us. As always, if you've loved the content, we very, very, very much appreciate the listeners out there. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this with someone you think can get some value. And if you think you have what it takes to bring amazing value, just like Josh did, reach out to us, and we'll see about bringing you on the show. Take care, everybody. God bless.
See you guys.